Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and of course, I am joined tonight by none other than the one, the only Mr. Drake Fallis. How you doing tonight, my man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. We just saw a hell of a performance by one Kevin Durant. We got series tied with Philadelphia. Atlanta showed up after being down big in the third quarter and came back and win that game yesterday. And the Clippers, even their series, but I still don't know what to think of the Clippers. So I'm in a great mood. It's great. I only have a 4-day work week. This is going to be awesome. I'm excited. Can't wait to get into it.
And that's right, because what you're seeing tonight is you are actually seeing a special edition of Speak Out. And we just decided to go on tonight since we both have things going on Thursday this week, and we wanted to keep the normal crew together for our episode of Speak Out. So we just decided to go ahead and roll with it tonight. And I'll tell you what, the last couple days we've had some absolute awesome NBA games going on. I could not ask for better NBA games currently. And think about some of the series that we've had going on right now. I think a big one that some people are shocked about, but I honestly wasn't shocked about it, was actually the Phoenix Suns versus the Denver Nuggets. I came out immediately and said, you know what? I honestly didn't think that the Nuggets had a chance in that series anyway, just based upon, without Murray, they didn't have another guy to help out Jokic. Michael Porter Jr., he wasn't really stepping up. So they didn't really have that second guy. So this sweep that the Suns did, it didn't surprise me at all. And so when you look at this series, Phoenix sweeping them 4-0, when you look at the Suns now, do you see anybody being able to beat the Suns team right now?
One team, and I don't trust them. It's the Clippers. The Clippers match up really well with the Phoenix Suns. They have they have defense. If they play defense the way they're playing against Utah the last two games, in Game 3 and Game 4, no one can beat the Clippers, especially when they're on their A game like they are right now on defense. And then if Kawhi Leonard shows up like he's been showing up big time, Paul George even gives them a mediocre game, and then they have one other scorer, I think the Clippers have a realistic shot. But the Phoenix Suns, man, everyone is rooting for Chris Paul, and I'm one of them. Chris Paul he's one of the guys who needs a ring. He's done everything right by the league. He's helped the league to where it is today, whether you like it or not. This is where the league is. He created the bubble atmosphere. He's done a lot for NBA cares, stuff like that. He's one of the good guys in the NBA. Yeah, he plays a little dirty, some people say, but I mean, he's 6'1" tall. I mean, the guy has to give some sort of advantage. But if Devin Booker's playing like an all-star like he is, if Crowder keeps playing the way he is, if they keep hitting three-point shots and they keep moving the ball the way they are, they have a realistic shot of making it to the finals. I still don't think – I think whoever comes out of the East probably going to have an upper hand just because of the side. And it's all up to 8-2 on the inside, especially if they play the Philadelphia 76ers, because you don't know how Embiid's going to be. The Suns are not the favorite, but the Clippers are the only team in the Western Conference, I think, that has a legitimate shot of beating the Phoenix Suns. But then again, do you really trust the Clippers? Because there are inconsistencies throughout the playoffs. They look horrible in the Dallas series, and they finally turn it on. In the first two games, they get beat, and then they finally turn it on at home. So what Clippers are we going to see tomorrow night? I think that's going to – we see the Clippers that we saw in games 3 and 4 against Utah, and they can wrap this series up in 6. I can see the Clippers, the Suns series going 7, and I think the Clippers can win it just because they have the experience with Kawhi Leonard and everything. But the Clippers are jinxed for some reason. They can never make it to the Western Conference. So until they get there, I still have Utah winning that series. But Donovan Mitchell needs help. But right now, the Phoenix Suns are the best team in the West until you beat them, because they swept they got confidence after they beat they've won what, 6 straight games, something like that. This team's rocking and rolling right now. Chris Paul's getting a week off to rest his shoulder. He's going to get mid-range shots back. He's getting a shot back and everything. So I think the Phoenix Suns are the team to beat, but the Clippers, I think, are the only team in the Western Conference that can actually stand up to them right now. Of the two remaining teams.
Which actually surprises me a little bit that you're kind of going with the Clippers, even though you still don't trust them because of how poorly, the Clippers have played in the past. Like, especially last year. I think everybody was disappointed last year with the way it kind of ended. But this year, a lot of people are actually saying that they want to see the Jazz go up against the Suns. Like people said that they're wanting to see it because of how well the Jazz can shoot the three ball. That they're like, the Jazz can beat the Jazz. They're thinking that the Jazz can come out and actually upset the Suns with how well they shoot the three. But to me personally, when you look at the Suns team is loaded basically from top to bottom. They can get double digits no matter because of their starting five. They're starting five, with Crowder and Ayton and Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Bridges. I mean, from top to bottom, they can get you double digits, so you don't have to rely on one guy because of how deep they are. With the Jazz, I mean, obviously, it's Donovan Mitchell's team, and so I actually read that quote that they believe that Donovan Mitchell is the best Jazz player in history. And they're saying they don't want to hear about Karl Malone. They don't want to hear about John Stockton. They're saying it is Donovan Mitchell. So, Trey, what do you think? Right now, when you look at Donovan Mitchell, do you think he's the best Utah Jazz player of all time?
Not right now, and I say that hesitant because the game has changed, right? Yeah, he's the first Utah player to score over 40 points and whatever that statistic was, edging out Karl Malone. But at the same time, it wasn't the same NBA. It was low scoring. It wasn't shooting three-point shots like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Karl Malone went to the NBA Finals and took Michael Jordan to 6 games each of those finals. Until Donovan Mitchell makes it, if Donovan Mitchell takes this Jazz team, especially without Mike Conley Jr. with his hamstring, and I can definitely, if he takes him to the finals this year, he doesn't have to win it, but if he makes it to the finals, you can make the argument. You can make the argument that he's the Utah player of all time. But I just, right now it's too early. He's only in his 3rd or 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
He's still got a long way to progress, but the way he's going, he will probably finish the best Utah Jazz player of all time the way it's going right now. But right now I still have Karl Malone slightly just because of the finals. But he's still early in his career. He still has room to grow. And everyone knows he's the only scorer, right? Especially with Mike Conley. We're seeing the significance of Mike Conley Jr. on the Jazz team. That pick and roll game for the Jazz, the ball movement for the Jazz is not there without Mike Conley Jr. So saying that, I just think it's either Donovan Mitchell's going to have to score like a Kevin Durant game, right? He's going to have to score bunches of points. He's got to score over 50 points to even have the Jazz even have a shot. Because bringing Ingles in off the bench is devastating their bench play, and I just think that's hurting the Jazz, and I think that's what's going to hurt them, and I think that's what's going to fall. If Mike Conley cannot play any games in this series, they're not going to make it. But right now, going back to your question, I just think that Karl Malone still has a slight edge just because of overall career. Mike Conley Jr. is still in the beginning stages of his career. Remember, he's only 24 years old. He's not even 25 yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still got a long way to go. And will he stay with the Utah Jazz? That's going to be another aspect too. If he leaves in the near future, then Karl Malone's got him beat by far away and beyond. But if he stays Utah throughout his whole career, I can totally see him being the best Utah Jazz player.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into a few of our comments that we have here. Brandon Herrera saying, hello, Trey and Ace. Hello, Brandon. How's it going tonight? I hope you're having a great night. And then Isaiah from the MI6 Network. There he is. He's saying, what's up, y'all? How you doing tonight, Mr. Isaiah? And then, of course, Con Man. The Con Man is making his presence. He's making his presence right here. You know what? Con Man, I think, would make an excellent addition to Speak Out. I'm just saying. He would make
especially right now. I would love his history and everything. Right? He would have been great for this topic.
we would love to have Conman anytime you want to hop on Speak Out and talk about some NBA. Hit me up, man. We'll bring you on the show to talk about it. And then, of course, Christy Wilson, she's saying BS. Karl Malone and John Stockton are the GOATs of the Utah Jazz and always will be. It's debatable. I mean, it's because when you look at overall history of the Jazz, the really the only two people that really stick out are Karl Malone and John Stockton. So Utah is not used to having those overall like huge stars, right? So when it comes down to it, you finally have another star in Donovan Mitchell. So I think that's where people are, okay, is Donovan Mitchell going to be the best Utah Jazz player of all time? Well, it's yet to be seen because it's like you said, he's still so young. We just don't know yet. But
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, but okay, going back to that comment, if the Utah Jazz win the NBA Finals this year, doesn't that surpass him better than Stockton and Malone because they couldn't get it done?
Exactly, because they had never done it. But then a lot of people though would also say this though. A lot of people might come out and say, yeah, well, look, this year's Jazz didn't have to be a Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. So I know a lot of people might come out and be talking about that. So
yeah, but not in one series. But this Western Conference is probably the deepest it's ever been, even going back to those Utah playing days, right? Because Utah just had to get through San Antonio. The Clippers had to get through an up-and-coming Grizzlies team. They had their number one overall seed, beat the Grizzlies. If they beat the Clippers, some people have the Clippers winning. They have a Hall of Famer in Kawhi Leonard. Paul George is a hell of a defender, super team like Nat Max. You have a head coach in Tyronn Lue, who's won a championship in Cleveland already. And then if you go and face a Nets team with Kevin Durant, who I think is the best player in the NBA, or a Philadelphia 76ers team with Joel Embiid in that, I can make an argument that their road was tougher to get to or if they win the finals was tougher than what Jordan and Pippen put in.
Hey, you know what? It's an excellent point, but I'm just saying it's definitely going to be a yet to see game because I really can't wait to see what Donovan Mitchell accomplishes in his career. How's it going tonight, Rudy? He's actually coming out and saying that Mitchell isn't even close to being Utah's all-time best player. You can't say that yet because of how young he is, but I understand where Trey's coming from. You know, if the Jazz come out this year and wins the NBA Finals, he'll do something that Stockton and Malone had never done.
Exactly.
And it's going to be he has that ring. And so that's where it's going to come down to it. But personally right now, just looking at the Utah Jazz, I don't think that they're going to make it to the finals. I think it's going to be the Phoenix Suns. That's what I'm seeing right now. I think it's going to be the Phoenix Suns.
If the Phoenix Suns keep playing the way they are, I understand the game, the sweep and everything and resting your players, but that week-long rust kind of hurts you in the first game, as we've seen with the other teams who come. Utah came out rusty against the Clippers in game one and should have lost that game. It wasn't for Donovan Mitchell coming out and being Spider-Man like he was and putting up ridiculous shot after ridiculous shot. But, man, I just don't – yeah, it's too early. I still have Karl Malone. We just have to see where Donovan Mitchell. I just hate these GOAT conversations. I think you're with me on this because it's not the same.
It's a different era. It's a different era.
Bill Russell did not play the same basketball as Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't play the same as LeBron James. And then now we're having the Karl Malone and just stop it. Just let the dude. He's not even 25 years old yet. Yes, he's having a great NBA career. They're 6-1 this year in the playoffs with him. He had a great bubble run last year with him and Jamal Murray going back and back. But he's not even 25. Let's pump the brakes. Karl Malone had a long, outstanding career. Can we just get this guy to 6 seasons before let's don't put too much pressure on this guy. He's already having a great start. But if he keeps up the pace that he's going, he will be the best Utah Jazz player. If he makes a finals. He has to make a finals to prepare that.
Well, yeah, but then you can also look at the Phoenix Suns to where people are talking about, Devin Booker being there's people out there who are saying that Devin Booker is a top 10 player in the NBA, but some people are putting him as in the top 5. But here's
Not
the
yet.
problem. Yeah, and here's the problem with that. Because now you're putting all this pressure on Devin Booker when in the past, yeah, he's been good in the past, but has he been great? I mean, he hasn't been what you would call like at that superstar level, but look at what he's done since Chris Paul has gotten there. And that's why we always like to say it's the Chris Paul effect, because he brings out the good in almost everybody he's with. I mean, he makes teams better. It's facts. Facts are facts, man. And the facts are there that shows Chris Paul makes teams better. Look at what he did with the Thunder, man. The Thunder weren't even expected to be in the playoffs. And look what he did with the Thunder.
Oh, I agree. Chris Paul makes the team better, but people are forgetting this Phoenix Suns team. But they went undefeated in the bubble last year. They were one game away from being. Devin Booker was making strides before Chris Paul got there. Has Chris Paul helped them?
Absolutely.
I mean, in the first series against the Lakers, Chris Paul's presence in the Lakers series was phenomenal. Yes, Chris Paul deserves all the credit, but Devin Booker was the killer in that series. Every time the Lakers would make a run, especially in Game 6, would make a run, Devin Booker was a Kobe Bryant assassin. He was that bucket that just stopped the run, like a bucket that just stopped the run, and he held the Suns team there because Chris Paul's shoulder was not there, but Chris Paul's experience and leadership and everything it helped Devin Booker calm down, because after game 1, 2, and 3, Devin Booker wasn't the same, but it took Chris Paul to get in not only Booker's ear, but Cameron Payne's ear as well, coming off the bench and showing him what to do. And Cameron Payne's having a hell of a series as well. I mean, he's coming off the bench, and he's been a lightsaber for the Phoenix Suns. So, yes, I agree with you on that aspect, but Devin Booker and the Phoenix – I hate these people. Oh, look what the Phoenix Suns were doing before Chris Paul got – they were one game away from going to the playoffs or playing in the play-in tournament to get in the play. They were undefeated in the bubble.
They went 8-0 in the bubble. They went 8-0 in the bubble.
8-0 bubble. So the head coach, Monty Williams, is a hell of a coach. He's improved the Suns' winning by 15 games each year he's been there. So to put it all on Chris Paul, yes, he's been a great asset, but Devin Booker has made strides before Chris Paul got there. He's not superstar mentality level, but as long as Chris Paul's there, mentoring him and showing, he's going to be even greater than what he was even going to be before Chris Paul got there. So I do agree with you on that. But this motion that Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker, they were building momentum last year. That's why Chris Paul joined them, because he saw that too.
All right, so Christy Wilson is out saying Devin Booker is a stud, and I think he's benefited from having Chris Paul as a teammate.
Yes.
He definitely has. Yes, and that is what we're saying. You know, he has benefited from having Chris Paul as a teammate, because Chris Paul's that veteran presence that can come in and help and guide Devin Booker and give him suggestions and be like, if you want to get better, try this and try this and try this. So definitely he has benefited. And then you have Rudy, who's saying Payne has been the biggest surprise. Before this playoffs, he was only known for his goofy pregame handshakes with Russell. Absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely. Payne has actually absolutely stepped up in this playoff. So, and you know what? People haven't been talking enough about Payne, but I'll tell you what, he's been there. He's actually been playing well in the playoffs. And so he just adds another piece to the puzzle that makes the Suns so good. I just like how any of them can score double digits on pretty much any night. But let's go ahead and jump off the Suns here, and let's jump over to the 76ers and the Atlanta Hawks, because I know you have a lot to say about this one, because I think, and the reason I'm saying this, and I got a buddy of mine, his name's Chad, and we were talking about this series, and I actually had the 76ers winning this series rather easily. But I did, okay? But then he came out and was like, well, I think you're overlooking the Hawks. He's like, the Hawks are actually a better team than what you think they are. So I don't know if it's more that they are just overachieving or if they're as good as they're actually playing.
It could be a little bit of both. I mean, before they made that coaching change, they were horrible. They were on the verge of missing the playoffs. And now they made the coaching change, and this head coach, it's late. I don't know his name, but anyway, he has made the right moves. He pushed every right button. He's made this team, not just a Trae Young team, because Trae Young has not lived up to his playoff for what he was the first series against the Knicks. Granted, it was the Knicks in the first game in Philadelphia. After Philadelphia, the size is bothering Trae Young, but he found something in game 3 late in the game, that big lineup with Gallinari and those other big who can shoot the 3 and stretch you out. It's kind of hurt Philadelphia, where Embiid's in his torn meniscus. That's the biggest thing. He didn't. Joel Embiid's meniscus is killing. He's not even gonna. I don't think he's gonna play in Game 5. So it's a little bit of both. Trae Young has been below par in this series because he's not hitting granted, he probably has a bum shoulder too because he has that ice pad or the heat pad on him all the time now. Every time he sits on the bench, but they're striving and they're making better. They're getting better and better and better, just like the Phoenix Suns. But it's a 3-point shooting, right? It's that 3-point shooting that Steph Curry's came in and changed the league. That no one's out of a game. We saw it tonight with the new Brooklyn Nets. No, as long as you're hitting threes, you can win 2 or 3 games. But can they beat the Philadelphia 76ers? I think it all depends on Embiid's knee and if Ben Simmons can hit free throws. That's going to be the big factor. Ben Simmons needs to start shooting the ball and start making late and driving to the basket and making some free throws. So if the Atlanta Hawks are sharing the ball, moving the ball around like they have been, the games that they did win, then yes, they can upset the Philadelphia 76ers. But if they're relying on Trae Young shooting 30-foot three-pointers all game long, then no, they're going to be out in the next 2 games. But the Atlanta Hawks are striving. They kind of progressed more than I thought they would. They surprised me this year. I thought they were going to lose to the Knicks because I thought the Knicks were for real, but I came to the realization that's not true whatsoever because I'm never going to trust the Knicks ever again. And so here we are with Trae Young and Atlanta Hawks. I think they're still a couple years away from being a real threat in the Eastern Conference. I think they're overachieving a little bit this year, but I think they're an up-and-coming team. As long as they give Trae Young some shooters, I think they'll be all right. But right now I think they are overachieving just a little bit.
Yeah, because I know that when you talk about shooters, there's been a few people I know that talk about Clint Capella, but the thing about Clint Capella is not a shooter. He's just not a shooter at all. Clint Capella is that guy that's going to come in and get you, 14, 15 rebounds a game. That's what he does. Clint Capella is a rebounder. He is not a shooter. But then when you look at the 76er side, when it comes to show you how good of a shooter somebody is, you can look at Ben Simmons and realize the game was on the line. The 76ers needed a 3, and what did they do? They pulled Ben Simmons out of the game because they know Ben Simmons is not a shooter. He's not a very good shooter. So if the 76ers want to have a chance at actually winning an NBA Finals, Ben Simmons is going to have to get better at shooting the ball. It does not do well for your psyche or show you anything when the coach is like, well, we're pulling you out and putting somebody else in because the game is on the line. It's horrible. It's horrible. So, Trey, what is your thoughts on that one when you think about it? Pulling Ben Simmons out when the game is on the line.
Well, the game's on, and plus he can't shoot free throws, right? So it's a double whammy. He can't score. He can't make free throws. He can't do it. He plays hell defense. He's giving Trae Young fits. But when the game's on the line, this guy's a potential superstar player, number 1 overall pick, and he's sitting on the bench. Then it's time for Ben Simmons to start practicing in the offseason instead of being one of the Jenners or Kardashian's sidekick or whatever he's doing. He's not working on his craft. He needs to get in the gym and work on his three-point shot because teams are not respecting him. So basically on the offensive side, they're basically playing 5-on-4. It's heartbreaking because we all see the great passing that Ben Simmons has, the defense that he has, the playmaking that Ben Simmons has. He's a 6'10" freaking nature point guard who can do anything. He can drive to the rim, but he's timid. He needs to stop being timid and just trust himself. And if he just practices just 50%, he's already going to be 100% better shooting the ball. He just needs to practice a little bit more. But it's too late this season. But I hope this is showing him that hey, they need to rely on you or. you're proving it's Joel Embiid's team, and that's not faring well for the Philadelphia 76ers because you can't trust Joel Embiid. As great as he is, he's a broken body. He's always going to be injured no matter what the circumstance. You need you need that other superstar in Ben Simmons to carry the load, which he can do if he can carry the shot. And I hope this is a reminder to him sitting on the bench on the crunch of his last 30 seconds of a game, that he's on the bench because he can't make shots or do anything on the offensive side. That this shows, oh crap, maybe I need to work on my craft and shooting the ball. This is showing me a light that I need to be a better player than what I am. Will he do it? I hope he does, because I like the guy, like his game, like his overall game. I just think that this is right now is Joel Embiid's team, but for the 76ers, that's a scary feeling because of the fragileness of Joel Embiid, because of torn meniscus. I mean, he went, 0 for 16 in the second half? Mm-hmm. Didn't even score a point, I don't think. Missed a layup at the end of the game to send the game to overtime or win the game. So if this doesn't show Ben Simmons that he needs to work in the offseason, because it's all reported that he does not work on his game in the offseason. He doesn't have like that, I hate bringing this up, the Mamba mentality, or even LeBron James, or working on his craft throughout the offseason to make himself better, to be one of the elite players in the league. And that's the only thing keeping him. Hope this will show him that, hey, my team needs me and I need to work on this craft so bad that you are going to get that Supermax in the future years. You're going to be the first team All-NBA. Second team All-NBA to get that super $200 million max. I hope he realizes it, and I hope that this is showing him a lesson that he needs to work on it. And if not, then maybe the Philadelphia 76ers need to cut bait with them and find another scorer for Joel Embiid, because you cannot trust Joel Embiid in the future to be your best player when he's so fragile.
So when I look at the series right now, yes, the Hawks have definitely overachieved from what I've said. But I do have, from what I've seen so far, I do have the series going 7, but I do have Philly in 7. I still don't think that the Hawks are going to have enough to beat Philly, but I still don't see Philly making the NBA Finals. But this series is going to go 7. Trey, final thoughts on this one. Do you have the 76ers or the Atlanta Hawks?
I have the Sixers, but this game with Joel Embiid being injured is kind of scaring me a little bit, because you can't trust Ben Simmons, right? You can't trust him to score. So who's going to pick up the scoring for Joel Embiid? Is it going to be Tabo Harris? Is it going to be Steph Curry, who's been playing out of his mind? It's playing out, scoring 30 points, looking like his older brother Steph. I think whoever wins this tomorrow night is going to win the series. If the Hawks win tomorrow night, they're going to win the series. Just because they're going home for Game 6, and Game 6 is going to be a Game 7 for them, because I don't see them going to Philadelphia and winning 2 in Philadelphia. So I have the 76ers, but whoever wins tomorrow night is going to win the series.
I'll tell you, Seth Curry in the last game had an open look when the game was on the line, had an open look, and he just clanked it, man. Just clanked it. Just could not get it to go in. But you know what? But Seth Curry, to me, has been like the most improved three-point shooter this season. The dude has been phenomenal from three-point range, and you can't tell me though that his brother doesn't have something to do with that. I'm pretty sure.
And that's what I was just fixing to say. I'm willing to bet you him and his brother will work, because they had that long layoff this last year.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure him and his brother got together with a couple family reunions, and Dale Curry for that matter. I think they all got in the backyard and showed him, hey. But man, I like Seth Curry, man. I always liked him at Duke. He's a better defender than his brother. I'll give him that. He's a heck of it. He's a better defender than him. But shooting the ball, he's improved
immensely. Yeah,
immensely. So, but the only thing that's scaring me is tomorrow night, who's going to pick up the scoring for Embiid if he cannot play. But I think the Philadelphia 76ers. But it's classic Doc Rivers, right? It's classic. I'm up 3-1. I'm up, like the momentum and everything collapses on him, and then he can't get over the hump unless you have a 3-headed superstar in Boston like he did to win him a championship. But he's blown a lot of 3-1 leads. If he blows this one, if he loses to the Hawks, how can you really trust Doc Rivers in the playoffs as your coach?
So Rudy's actually leaving a comment, and he's saying Hawks with the surprise upset in the series, and Simmons gets traded in the offseason, which could, it could potentially happen, because if the 76ers don't make it to the finals this year, I think something's going to change. Something is. Somebody's going.
It's Simmons. I mean, Joel Embiid proving his worth. I mean, he's got to stay healthy. But you can't trust Ben Simmons to stay on the court in the last 30 seconds when the ball game's on the line. One of your best players on the bench because he can't score. It has to be Ben Simmons. And I agree. Ben Simmons is going to have to go because the Philadelphia 76ers are not going to be able to afford all these players that they have under contract right now for a couple more years. So I totally agree. I think Ben Simmons is going if they don't make the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but you know who else I don't trust on Philadelphia? And I don't know why Philadelphia wanted this guy, but Danny Green. I've never been a fan of Danny Green. Danny Green is so inconsistent. And I know some people talk highly about him, but I've just never been a Danny Green fan. I think they can do so much better than Danny Green.
Well, Danny Green's living off his past against in San Antonio Spurs when he went on that magical run in the NBA Finals and made the most three-pointers in the NBA Finals ever in history.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. And now he's like, he's so freaking. I can't even call him streaky because he goes on more hiatus games than he does playing. I mean, his defense is all right, but he's getting older in that, and now he can't stay healthy. He's gone. I agree with you. I never talked to. I live in San Antonio. Come look at Spurs Twitter back in the day. Everyone was like, "Oh, Danny Green's the man," and then now all of a sudden, we hate Danny Green. So
right.
Danny Green's one of those players that he's a Tar Heel. Rudy's a Tar Heel fan. I know it sucks, Rudy, but I'm just saying that I'm with you, Adam. I just think that he's too wildly inconsistent. I don't. Philadelphia got him because they're trying to get more scores, and they're for some reason every team thinks that he's the X factor, right? Like he's going to make these shots, but he misses more wide open shots than he does make. So I agree with you. I think I think Danny Green is probably, if anyone signs him in free agent, there's a reason why the Lakers didn't want to re-sign him. It's because of that reason.
All right, and then the next thing we'll jump to is we will jump to that awesome series that is going on right now between the Clippers and the Jazz. This is the series that when I watched at the very beginning, this is the series that I wanted to watch because this series means everything for the Clippers. I'll tell you that right now. If the Clippers lose this series, things are changing. It is going to change drastically in Los Angeles. The Clippers, I don't think they're not going to be the same team if they lose this series. I think Kawhi Leonard goes. I think Paul George. Yeah. I think at this point, it kind of just gets decimated. Trey, what do you think? If the Clippers lose this series, what do you think happens to the Clippers?
Man, if they don't make it to the Western Conference Finals, it's over. But if we go back, not in near future history, we had Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan and all that. They just kept getting the team together, we're gonna do it this year. It kind of has that same feeling, right? Like it's right there, but the carpet just keeps getting pulled.
But
Lucy keeps pulling the ball from them.
Yeah, but going back to that though, I know that you're talking about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. Yeah, that was a hell of a trio there, but in the end, when you look at it, Chris Paul was never really healthy. Blake Griffin was never healthy. DeAndre Jordan was in and out. So the big three, when it came to playoff time, they were hurt half the time. But now this year, the Clippers they can't say that because the Clippers are relatively healthy. And they were healthy last year when they lost too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying is that what I was getting to is they kept that team for way too long and they didn't tear it up quickly enough. And I'm hoping they're not doing it this time. If they don't make the Western Conference Finals this year, they need to blow it up. It ain't going to work. It's proven. Kawhi Leonard's going to be gone. Yeah, he's going to be gone. They might keep Paul George because I don't think anyone trusts Paul George. Playoff P. He's wildly inconsistent other than the Indiana series against LeBron James when they took him to 7 games and everyone thought that Paul George was the best player in the planet and thought he was the LeBron James stopper. He's nowhere to be found anymore. I don't know where that guy went. He had one good series and after that it's over with. That's what I'm saying. I just hope that they don't. It needs to be blown up and then Steve Ballmer needs to do something else. Maybe the Clippers should just curse, but I still think that I hope Utah wins it, but I think the Clippers if they play. I just don't know. The Clippers are that team, man. I just don't know.
You can't trust them. You just can't trust them.
No, like the last 2 games, they look like the best team in the league. But you just don't trust. Like if their offense ain't flowing, then their defense struggles. Their defense struggles. It's like everything's got to work together. And when it works together, it's a beautiful thing. Kawhi Leonard hitting shots. Their defense is the best I've seen in all the NBA playoffs. Believe it or not, when they're on ball defending 1-on-1, team defensive. Getting deflections on every single pass, it seemed like, with the Utah Jazz. But yeah, you're right. I think Kawhi Leonard might stay, but they're gonna have to they have to move Paul George. They're gonna have to move. I think Patrick Beverley's gone. He's a shell of himself. That guy's I can't stand him. They need more shooters, and they probably need more young, talented. Luka, maybe. Do you see a trade with Paul George and Luka? Maybe.
Patrick Beverley, I will tell you right now, Patrick Beverley needs to go. They replaced Beverley with Jackson. Okay, Jackson. They replaced him with Jackson. And so when you look at Beverley is a guy that he can't. Number one, he can't shoot very well. He can't. He's more of an assist guy and defender. That's what he is. So that's why when the Clippers constructed this team and you had Paul George, Patrick Beverley, and Kawhi Leonard, everybody was coming out saying how the Clippers were going to be the best defensive team in basketball because you had 3 of the best defenders in basketball. But one thing that people weren't looking at is, yeah, Beverley is a good defender, but he can't shoot. He cannot shoot the ball for anything. And so I don't even like it when Beverley shoots because I'm like, most of the time he's going to miss.
Yeah, he used to be back when they gave the Warriors fits in the first round when they're making sure they overachieved that year and they took them to six games or 7 games. I can't remember. A couple of years ago, made Kawhi Leonard join the Clippers. Patrick Beverley was hitting those corner threes. He was making those big shots. Now he's not. And now his on-ball defense, he's too much of an aggressor, I guess, if there's such a word. And it hurts him. Like he tries to go for every steal. He gets in foul trouble. The momentum of his team, he kills it every time that he's in the game, it seems like. I think his minus is better than his plus at any point in the season or in this playoffs. So Patrick Beverley is gone. I never liked the dude. I think he's he's kind of those guys, like if he's on my team, I would like him. But if he's not, I don't like him. It's kind of like a Green for the Warriors. But yeah, Patrick Beverley is gone. He's not benefiting this Clippers team whatsoever. He went from being a starter to DNP in the first series against the Dallas Mavericks. He couldn't stop Luka Doncic. He couldn't stop anyone He couldn't stop Penny or Tim Hardaway. He couldn't stop any of those 3-point until they put Reggie Jackson in, and it showed significant improvement. I think Steve Ballmer needs to be gone.
But Jackson is actually a decent shooter. He is. He can shoot the 3-ball.
Yeah.
But like Jackson had a great game, but then it was game 3. Jackson had a great game. Then game 4 was and then game 5 was a little bit better. But I do like Jackson's shooting ability better than I do Patrick Beverley. I do like that one better. The only move that I really hated that the Clippers made, and you may not agree with me on this, but I did not like when the Clippers actually traded Lou Williams and got Rondo. Now, I know Rondo, you consider him playoff Rondo. I know everybody does because, Rondo steps it up in the playoffs. But Lou Williams is a killer off the bench, man. Like, that dude is considered – that dude is in the conversation every year for 6th man of the year. And that is because that's the style of game that Lou Williams plays. When Lou Williams steps on the court, Lou Williams can hit a 3 at any point because that's what he does. That's Lou Williams. So that was the one move that I actually thought that the Clippers messed up on.
I think that there's two things. I think the Clippers were tired of Lou Williams and his antics. Chicken wing Lou. I just remember last year in the bubble, he left and they found him in a strip club getting chicken wings or whatever the case may be. I think they're getting a little tired of his antics a little bit. And then I think they're saying we have enough scoring on this team. we need to bring in a facilitator, a true point guard, because they didn't really have a true point guard on this team. And Rajon Rondo, he moves the way you want to. He can't shoot the ball very well, but he puts players in spots and makes them in a better position to score the ball, and he makes everybody on that team accountable. But yeah, you're right. Lou Williams, he hasn't done much with the Hawks these playoffs because it ain't the same. He's getting older, of course. But I get where you're coming from, but I can see where the Clippers want to make that change. But Rajon Rondo, he's also getting older in the years, and I think everyone was expecting Rajon playoff Rondo, and you're just not getting it this year because of the olderness. And remember, he didn't start with this team either. He came in at the trade deadline, and it took him a while. He's taken a while to progress through the system that the Clippers are having. So I kind of see what the Clippers were trying to get out of him, but it's just not working out for him, and they're requiring Kawhi Leonard to carry this team day in and day out. And if Morris is hitting threes like he was the other night, then this team is one of the best teams in the NBA, and I just don't see anybody beating them if they keep playing the way that they are playing. But that's the Clippers. They're never consistently enough. Like tomorrow night, they might lose by 30 points and then go on to win the next two games. So I agree with you. Maybe they should have kept Lou Williams, but it's never here or there. They did it. That's nothing we can say about it. So I'll tell you what, the Atlanta Hawks are glad to have them in the bench.
Oh, absolutely. So right now, when you look at it, do you have the Jazz or do you have the Clippers?
I'm sticking with my guns. I'm sticking with the Jazz. I think with home court advantage and that the crowd's starting to be at 100% capacity now, I think it's going to get them rolling, and I think Quinn Snyder is going to get. And I'm with everybody else. I want to see the Jazz and the Suns because that's going to be fun basketball to watch. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down, 3-point goal. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a high-scoring, fun basketball game, just like the Warriors and Trailblazers were a couple of 3 or 4 years ago. It's going to be one of those games, but I think that series will go 7. And I think if the Clippers play the Suns, I think that possibly it's going to be a more boring series, and I think the Clippers can win that game. But I'm rooting for Donovan Mitchell. I love this guy. He's one of the classiest guys in the NBA. He does a lot for the fans. He does an extraordinary work for charity. I just like Donovan Mitchell. So I'm rooting for the Utah Jazz, but my gut's saying the Clippers are going to take this in 6 games. But if Conley somehow gets out there and gives you some minutes, then yes, the Jazz have a great shot. But the Jazz are showing themselves. No one can create a shot for themselves other than Donovan Mitchell. And Rudy Gobert, and they're showing what they're going small ball. They're taking Rudy Gobert out. I think Rudy Gobert only had like 2 or 3 points last game. It was unbelievable, and he's one of the best players in the league. Whatever the case, he's a great defender. I'll give you that, but he's a liability on the offensive end or on the defensive end whenever there's because he can't guard that. He doesn't want to come out of the paint, and you have to guard the 3-point shooters. So I think that's hurting him a little bit in the series. But if you had to put a gun to my head and make me pick and put my life on the line, I'll go Utah in 7.
Utah in 7, yeah, and this is kind of where I'm like back and forth because I want to look at this and I want to pick the Clippers so bad, like I do. I want to say that the Clippers are going to win this, but then on the other hand, you look at the Clippers and you know how much of kind of choke artists they are, and it's hard to trust them. And I know that if the Utah Jazz can get hot at any point, how well they can shoot the 3 ball, that's what the Clippers have to be concerned about. So I think that Utah could manage to pull this off in 7. They could, but my gut is telling me Clippers, man. I don't know. My gut's telling me Clippers, but it's just so hard for me to trust them. It really is.
Well, there's another factor we're not talking about. Kawhi Leonard hurt his knee late in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, he said at the end of the game, he wasn't nowhere to be found the last 2 minutes. He was on the bench resting his knee. So depending on that knee situation, if Kawhi Leonard's not 100% or even 90% at that matter, and his knee's giving trouble, because we saw what knees can do, well, Joel Embiid and everything, then the Jazz have a better chance. But saying that, I think Kawhi Leonard's going to come out like game busters, and I think for me as a podcaster, it's a better storyline if the Clippers don't make the Western Conference Finals, because then we can talk crap about them all we want to, because they would never make the Western Conference Finals. I never want the Clippers to make the Western Conference Finals, because that's just one thing that's just hilarious to me, that you've been in the league so many years, you play in LA and you've never made the Western Conference Finals. But if any year they're going to do it, it has to be this year, because everything. I mean, you have no Mike Conley. Donovan Mitchell's ankle is killing him. He's playing hurt. Rudy Gobert. Joe Ingles is not shooting the three ball well as he used to. Jordan Clarkson's another guy who can create a shot for himself, but he's coming off the bench, and he's wildly inconsistent at times too. So any year is going to do it, it's going to have to be this year. And I just don't. Me personally, I just hope I just think the Utah Jazz having those 2 home games, I think it's going to help them shoot the ball better at home. That's why I think they're going to win in 7 games.
Yeah, so we have a few comments going here. Mess Around Dave saying, "What's up, guys?" So I'm going to throw it out there and say, "Hey, how's it going, Mess Around? I hope you're having a great night." And then the MI6 Sports Network is saying, "Let me in here." I don't know who's saying to let me in here, but if it's Callan, I sent you the link. So if you want to hop on for a few minutes, you're more than welcome to hop on. I sent you that link. So yeah, it's there. But Trey, everything you're saying, I completely agree with you on that. But the one thing I will say about this is, can you consider this Utah Jazz team? Can you consider this Utah Jazz team probably the greatest Jazz team you've seen?
No.
No? Hey, there he is.
Wait, the greatest Utah of all time?
Oh, well, okay, so people are coming out. No, there's people who are coming out and saying that this Jazz team this year is possibly the greatest Jazz team you've ever seen.
No, those Stockton Malone teams were no. You have Jeff Hornacek, you have John Stockton, you have Karl Malone, the second all-time leading scorer points. You have Hornacek who can shoot the 3. You have Brian Russell, who's one of the hell defenders who got pushed off by Jordan, by the way. But I'm not complaining about that. But those teams in the 90s were better than what this team is right now.
Now, keep in mind, this is not coming from me. This is just
I know.
Yeah, this is coming from things that I've read. That people are like, you have to consider this Jazz team as one of the greatest teams. But Callan, I'm going to go ahead and give you this. What do you think? Do you think that you have to consider this Jazz team one of the greatest Jazz teams you've seen?
In my lifetime, yes, because I wasn't alive to see Stockton and Malone. But all time, though, no. Stockton and Malone, though, I think, along with Mark Eaton, put that Jazz franchise on the map. And there's no way that you can say that a Utah Jazz team this year. Believe me, I love Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as much as the next guy. But to say that they're better than Stockton and better than Malone when I believe Utah went to the finals twice in the 90s, 2 times.
2 years in a row.
Yeah.
This team would have to get to the finals and win the damn thing to take over any precedent in my mind over Stockton and Malone. I mean, they're fun to watch. They're great, but at this early stage, kind of in a year though, not just that, but in a year though where the Lakers weren't at full health all season, they fell from the top down to the 7th spot, and there was a lot of injuries and a lot of other teams probably that could have played better than what they played. I mean, believe me, I'd love to see Utah play Phoenix 1 versus 2 in the conference final, but I would say cool but jets a little bit on the whole argument about that this Utah Jazz team is better than the Mailman and John Stockton, because I mean, then again, those teams back then had to play the Bulls. I mean, come on now. I mean, maybe they probably have to play. Maybe they do in fact have to play like a Brooklyn or maybe play a Milwaukee in the finals. But oof, that's tough. I mean, it's not tough. It's just like, really, at this early stage, we're already going to declare Mitchell and Gobert greater than John Stockton.
Exactly right.
No, I can't do that.
All right. So, and we were just talking about this series in general. Okay. So right now, Callan, if you had to make your prediction, because of how I'm the guy that'll come out here and tell you right now, I can never trust the Clippers. I just can't because they seem to choke. So right now, do you have the Clippers or the Jazz?
I know that the Clippers have the momentum up. Now it's tied again. They win 2 games in a row. But going back though to Vivint Arena and that atmosphere in Salt Lake City, where that crowd is engaged and they are exuberant and they're bringing the energy from tip off to the end, I like Utah to go up 3-2 at home. Maybe slide in Game 6, but I think if not, maybe wrap up in 7. Because I agree though, Ace. I mean, I may have been one of the very few who probably have called the Jazz a fluke because them being that number 1 seed. this season. Phoenix, sadly, Isaiah, is also a fluke as well because it's Chris Paul and nobody else carrying that team right now at this rate. But I do think, though, Ace and Trey, at this rate, though, that Utah's home court may be the best in the entire league right now. Phoenix is probably close with home court, with how they're at full capacity. Again, California's at full capacity finally as of today, though. But then again, though, I mean, home court can only do so much. And we saw what it does, or what it did for Brooklyn tonight, what it did for the Bucks in games 3 and 4. Though my prediction of Bucks and 6 is now out the window because of them losing tonight, though. But I do think, though, that with them going back to Utah, back to Salt Lake City, back to the Mountain Time Zone, and back to elevation, much like in Denver, that could be a little bit of a case of where, in fact, home court goes in favor of the Jazz. So I like Utah to bounce back and win Game 5 and hopefully close out in Game 6. But if not, I think Game 7. If you thought Salt Lake City was rocking already, wait until if and when it goes to a Game 7, it's going to be way louder at Vivint Arena than what it is right now.
All right, well, let's welcome in Isaiah. We all like to hear his take, so I can't wait to hear this. So, Isaiah, what do you got for us, man? Clippers, Jazz, what do you got?
Well, first of all, Callan, I can't believe that you forgot Devin Booker when you
exactly.
Like, this man is a bad man. He might be even badder than Aaron Rodgers. I've been saying for years that this dude was the top 10 player in the NBA, and I'm finally getting validated for it. But back to the Jazz Clippers point, it's really tough because, you got the Clippers with experience, the Jazz, they don't really have that much experience on their side. But the Jazz, they do have home court, like Callan says. And, that environment in Utah, man, it might be the second most boisterous atmosphere in these playoffs, maybe outside of Phoenix, because that crowd in Phoenix, that atmosphere, it's very tough. It's rocking. It's so loud. But I watched the game, I think it was in Game 2, and that arena in Utah, it was rocking. You could feel it. I could feel it all the way from Oakland, California, how shaking that arena was. But, I want the Clippers to lose because as a Laker fan, I hate the Clippers. But I got to go with the Clippers. I just think that right now the Jazz look rattled after the Clippers have won the last 2 games by blowout. I think Ty Lue and the Clippers, they found out a defensive adjustment in Game 2. I think it was late in that game when the Clippers were making the run. They made a defensive adjustment that seemed to rattle the Jazz, even though the Jazz ended up pulling through and winning that game. But I think that defensive adjustment really helped carry into Game 3 and Game 4 and has really led to the Clippers' success. So sadly, even though I hate to say it, I got to go with the Clippers.
All right, so then we have one final topic on this one between the Clippers and the Jazz. Trey touched on it a little bit. I've touched on it a little bit. So, Callan, I'll go ahead and go with you on this one. If the Clippers lose this series, let's say they end up losing to the Utah Jazz, is this it for the Clippers? Do they disband and completely restart after this season?
I think they have to. I mean, how many chances can a group or can a team get in this long span of time? It's been like they've been in the playoffs like every year it seems like since 2012, 2013, 2014, whenever they won that like first division championship a few years ago. It's like how many chances? How many chances can you get to, make this history and become that first Buffalo Braves or San Diego / LA Clippers team to reach the conference final, and now you have a chance to finally do so. And also you have a chance again to become the top team talked about minus the Dodgers in all of Los Angeles County for that matter. And even though it's going to always be a Lakers town, this is your chance for validation. This is your chance to finally, for once, not be the doormat for every other LA sports fan that lives in the city. But I do think, though, that if the Clippers don't win this series, I don't see Kawhi Leonard sticking around. The Clippers are going to be saddled with that Paul George contract plus that extension he signed and stuck with, a lot of maybe aging veterans and stuck with a coach who probably, is not the right guy for the job. And like I said, though, I mean, you can only get so many chances. And I think that the Clippers' window of opportunity and their window of winning a title will slam shut and close and be locked for the foreseeable future if they don't get over the Utah Jazz in the second round, which I still don't think they're going to do. But Ace, to your point, though, I mean, at the same time, like I said, though, how do you keep a team around like this that just has so much dysfunction? Yeah, it's looked better this year, but I went back and watched one of our programs from MI6 from September of last year when the Nuggets knocked out the Clippers in Game 7, and all we were talking about was how fragile this ball club was in the bubble last season. We had, Paul George and his whole, rah, oh, we got to stick together, and there was a lot, and a lot of infighting. I say a lot, guys, that in team sports, you can't have infighting. I mean, yeah, you can, guys maybe hate each other's guts because of how they're playing, but that's what breaks teams. And that's what separates the championship caliber ball clubs from the pretending ball clubs like the Clippers, and what they have been, though, is all the infighting and all the the banter or the cliques and the star treatment, and how the Clippers organization babies Kawhi Leonard, how they baby Paul George, as they did though in the bubble last season, and even the reports that came out too last season that they literally were letting Kawhi Leonard guys live here in San Diego and be late for team flights out of LAX. They let Paul George sit out practice every other day, and I also said though too is that they didn't want to blame it on team chemistry. I blame it all on team chemistry because, like I said last season, there were nights that Kawhi would play and Paul George would sit out. There'd be nights where Paul George would play and then Kawhi would sit out, and they would never play together. And when they would play together, it was like, oh, it'd be great if they could play together. But like I also said, though, you can't load manage your way to a championship, and that the Clippers have done everything wrong over the past several years in the postseason. But if they do, in fact, lose Ace and Trey, I don't see how you keep this dysfunctional group of players around for much longer. I think Kawhi is going to be out, but sadly, they're going to be saddled with Paul George. And oh, by the way, no first-round pick for the next 6 seasons. Good luck with that, Clippers.
But you say you can't load your management your way to a. Didn't Kawhi Leonard do that with Toronto?
He did that in Toronto, but there's just something about the Clippers,
okay, they're talking about Clippers.
It's more so with the Clippers. It's just their luck, like it is with San Diego sports. It's just their luck.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
All right, Isaiah, I can't wait to hear about you on this one. How about you? You got the Clippers or the Jazz?
You mean in the series?
Yeah.
I got the Clippers in this series because I mean, even though I do like the Jazz, I like what they have done, I just think the Clippers have figured out a way to tame the Jazz. But I think Phoenix wins the West, fellas. I think that I compare the Phoenix Suns to the 2015 Golden State Warriors when they won the title pre-Kevin Durant. This was a young team that a lot of people coming into that season, the Warriors, I believe, had fired Mark Jackson. They had hired Steve Kerr. And then a lot of people going into that season, they were like, they didn't know what to expect from the Warriors because that Warriors team was young. They had Curry, Thompson. I think Draymond Green was still there. Festus Ezeli, Harrison Barnes. All of those guys were there, but they were young and they hadn't reached their full potential yet. And then going into that season, I remember the Warriors, a lot of people picked them to either be 7th, 8th, even some people picked them to miss the playoffs because of the new coaching change with Steve Kerr replacing Mark Jackson. And then, the Warriors finished with the best or the top record in the West. Everybody went in thinking that it was a fluke. They said that, the Warriors are going to be they're going to be roasted in the playoffs. They're going to be exposed. And then the Warriors just steamrolled their way into the playoffs. And they were playing with great cohesionness, great chemistry, like you mentioned yesterday on Wild Sports Talk. Ace, they have Devin Booker, they had Steph Curry, who was breaking out. Devin Booker's doing the same thing. I just see a lot of the similarities between the 2015 Golden State Warriors and this Phoenix Suns team. This Phoenix Suns team, they move the ball extremely well. They play together on offense, defensively. They are very tenacious. I think Phoenix this year was the number 1 ranked defense in the entire NBA. I might be wrong on that stat, but they were up there in the upper echelon of NBA teams when it came to defense. And the crowd there is just rocking. It's one of the most craziest environments I've seen in the NBA. The fans have been starving for winning basketball for a long, long time. And they just, they are very deep, and they also play together and have that togetherness, unlike, a team that we were talking about earlier in the Los Angeles Clippers. So I think the Clippers will win this series, but I have the Suns taking the West in these playoffs.
Sorry, I have to respond to Isaiah, fellas, and I know that neither of you guys care, but Isaiah, don't tell me there has been meaningful basketball in the Valley of the Sun. May I remind you, sir, that the sister franchise of the Suns have not one, not two, but 3 WNBA championships and have been playing playoff basketball much longer in consecutive years than the beloved Suns down there? Don't give me any of that. Ace, back to you.
All right, thank you, Cal. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into our next series, which is the Nets versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Trey, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start with you. So as we saw tonight, the Milwaukee Bucks just came out absolutely. They were hot. They were on fire, and it looked like it was going to be an absolute runaway to where I'm like, okay, wow, the Nets are going to actually go down 3-2 in this series, and it's going to end up being over at this point. But Trey, what do you think went wrong tonight for the Milwaukee Bucks? And I know that Kevin Durant absolutely went off, but I'll tell you right now.
Don't forget Jeff Green went off too.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Correct. But I think the one thing that I would say that the Bucks, to me, I feel like they did wrong was they did not double Kevin Durant. They needed to double Kevin Durant. And Trey, I know you might completely disagree with that because we talked a little bit about it, but that was one thing that the Bucks should have done. They should have focused on Kevin Durant because, James Harden was not 100%. You could see it. He was out there playing. He was more of a decoy. But in reality, he went 1 for 10. 1 of 10. He just was not himself. He shouldn't have been playing. But he was out there. They won the game. That's all that matters for the Nets. But, Trey, I'm going to go to you. What went wrong for the Bucks?
Kevin Durant. I'm just kidding. I mean, Kevin, I don't care if you double teamed him or not tonight. That guy was going off, and he heard all the chatter today, like, oh, LeBron James he was the best player in the league, right? He carried these non-teams to the NBA Finals. It's your turn, Kevin Durant. No James Harden, no Kevin Durant, or no Kyrie Irving. And he showed out. He's played all 48 minutes. They didn't even look tired. It looked like he can go for an extra 10, 15 extra minutes if they went into overtime. Scored 49. He should have gone 50, but he got 49, 17, and 10. A triple-double on top of it, played 48 minutes. But what happened is the Milwaukee Bucks stopped doing what they needed to do on the offensive side. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the biggest failure in the NBA playoffs. I don't care what anyone says. I love the guy, but his game doesn't translate in the NBA. He can't make free throws. He goes over 10 seconds every time at the free throw line. He's not confident enough in that. And then he has a mismatch on him on James Harden. He can't take advantage of that. Jeff Green, he's 7 foot, 290 pounds, pure muscle. No one can stop him in the lane. He doesn't drive. He steps back and shoots that awkward three-point shot. And then you have Chris Middleton, who had an extraordinary good game today. Chris Middleton showed out today. He had a really good game, and he helped carry that to get that game close to what it should have been. But I don't think doubling Kevin Durant, because Jeff Green was getting hot. He went 5 from 6 or 6 for 7 from 3-point range tonight. He was game busters. And then, like you said, James Harden was just a decoy. And I think that's what kind of threw off Milwaukee a little bit too, because they didn't know what kind of James Harden you're going to get. You still got to play him to what James Harden is, because, yeah, he was a decoy tonight, but no one knew how good that hamstring was. So Kevin Durant was going to go off tonight. I don't care if you got double team or not. You saw that clutch 3-point shot when James Harden just threw it to him, and he just threw it up and made nothing but net. He was just in the zone. But, I mean, you have a 17-point lead, and the Milwaukee Bucks just stopped running their offense, started playing selfish ball one-on-one when Chris Middleton was doing one-on-one. And then Drew Holiday, who just dribble, shoot like a James Harden, but just misses the shots all night long, especially in the fourth quarter. That's exactly what happened with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I don't trust I can't even pronounce his name, Bud. I just call him Bud.
Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, him. I can't. He needs to be fired. He doesn't even need to be on the plane, because how do you blow a 17-point lead with only one superstar and no one else making shots besides Jeff Green? You should have won that game by 30 points. And when I was watching this game, they only were down 16 at halftime. I'm like, they're in trouble, because Brooklyn's going to get hot, and they did. And once they got hot, and once the game got closer and closer and closer, you saw what Milwaukee Bucks did. They started playing selfish basketball, and that was the difference in the game. They stopped doing what was working for them, moving the ball around, but taking care of those mismatches, and they just were playing selfish ball, and that's the key difference in this game tonight.
Exactly. The first 21 points that the Nets scored were all Kevin Durant and Jeff Green. It wasn't anybody else. It was 21 points, Kevin Durant and Jeff Green. So, Callan, I'm going to go to you on this one. Your opinion, what went wrong for the Milwaukee Bucks?
The Milwaukee Bucks went back into the archive to watch the Blazers and Kings play the Lakers, where they got up to 41-25 leads and just like, oh, we got this in the bag. And then they stopped playing offense, or they stopped their offense, as Trey alluded to. But, I mean, I solely believe that Milwaukee is probably done, even though it pains me to say that. But, I mean, they had a chance to go up 3-2 with a team on the ropes without Irving, with a hobbled James Harden somehow gutting it out. And, yes, it was a big night for Durant and even for 47-year-old stud Jeff Green out there balling out still, as he was tonight for the Nets. But even then, though, it's just like Milwaukee had their chance, and it's gone goodbye, sadly. I don't see us going past Game 6, and it's going to suck to see the Bucks perhaps lose Game 6 at the Forum at Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee, where, again, that fan base has been, also pretty electric, even though they've been at a very small capacity because of Milwaukee and Wisconsin's guidelines, though. But I think it was just more so that the Bucks stopped doing what they were doing best in the first half. Obviously, Giannis's playoff track record is getting, hit after hit after hit. Rightfully so, though, with some of his shot selection and stuff like that. But I really don't see how Mike Budenholzer makes it out beyond this season. I really think that they're going to have to go a different direction. I like Budenholzer a lot. I think he was great down in Atlanta when he brought the Hawks back from their playoff drought, and he was good down there. But I think for the Bucks to kind of get to that next rung of the ladder, maybe get beyond round 2 and maybe lure some better talent, it may have to come with a new head coach, maybe a GM change. I don't know if it really goes that far. But I do think, though, that, like I've said, though, Milwaukee is building something great. Yes, it's one man right now with Giannis. I'm going to live and die on the on the island of being probably one of the biggest Giannis fans preseason, regular season, postseason. I like the guy a lot. But, he's going to need more help. But I think that would also, it also boils down on him, though, for, shot selection. Maybe, not taking over in with those mismatches down low where he can just dominate down low. But I think, though, that sadly for me, it's going to have to rely on a coaching change, get a new voice in there. And that I really, honestly, now with them being down 3-2, yeah, they won game 3 and 4. Back at home, but they're probably going to need to get, maybe 50 out of Giannis and maybe 30 out of Middleton and maybe 20 out of Holiday and, maybe 20 more from Brook Lopez or someone else because, sadly, guys, we're seeing a team right now with one star trying to navigate the playoffs, and we're seeing that you need to have those 2 and 3 stars, back to back to complement the main guy. But I do think, though, that this is not going to be the end of Milwaukee's time being in the playoffs. I think that they're still going to be a very fun team to watch. I think that as more time goes on, as I've said, that they're building something great. I think now you just have to kind of retool a little bit, not a full-blown rebuild, but retool, maybe a new coach, and hopefully try to lure somebody or some buddies out to go to Cream City, USA. But I think, though, sadly, after tonight and how they lost that game, gone goodbye, and thanks for coming, and we'll see you next year.
All right, Isaiah, it's up to you, my man. What do you got?
The series is over. Tonight was what my guy Callan would say on MI6 Sports Network was a soul-snatching win by the Brooklyn Nets. There's losses that you just can't recover from towards the next game. I know there's a saying in sports that there's always the next game. Well, there's some losses that you just can't recover from even after during the next game, and this was one of them. You had a 17-point lead against a team that was missing Kyrie Irving and had a hobble James Harden, basically a one-man show with Kevin Durant, and you blow a 17-point lead to that team, and you guys let Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, and others get hot, and then the Bucks just panicked in the second half when the lead was whittling down and down and down, and they just started, trying to be the hero, trying to, push the lead back up and trying to, one man trying to will his team to the victory, and that's not how the Bucks play basketball. You know, they play unselfishly. They move the basketball. They play how the Warriors and the Spurs play their style of play, and the Bucks, they got away from it, and it cost them. And I truly believe that, you know, like we've all said, that this series is over. I believe that I wouldn't be shocked if the Brooklyn Nets win the next game by at least 20 points, because I just think Milwaukee is just so depressed, and I just think they're so heartbroken, and I just believe that they won't be able to recover from this type of a loss.
All right, so before we go ahead and wrap up the show here, the other thing I want to say is, so our very own Trey, he left a post on Facebook today, and I'll tell you, he got a lot of flack for it. I mean, people came in and absolutely destroyed him for it. He left a post that said, Kevin Durant, best player in the NBA. And so, Callan, I'll go ahead and start with you. Is that something that you would agree with? And the only reason I'm saying this is a lot of people that went on there and destroyed him was Lakers fans, and they were trying to defend LeBron James. And so that's why they came on there and completely destroyed Trey. And then some of them couldn't answer the question when they said, okay, when Trey asked them and said, okay, if Kevin Durant isn't, then who is? Nobody wanted to answer the question. They just said, stop it, Trey, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. So, Callan, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Well, let me just say this to the whole, greatest of all time debate. It's always and forever going to be Michael Jordan, regardless of what Kobe did, whatever LeBron did, whatever Steph does, whatever Giannis ends up doing, whatever Booker ends up doing. It's always and forever going to be Michael Jordan. If it's not Michael Jordan, it's got to be Bill Russell. Again, 11 championships in his time with the Celtics, playing during, the social, the 60s of their social injustice movements back then, player coach, stuff like that. So it's either, for me, it's Russell and Jordan as the two greatest of all time players. But in regards, though, to Durant as the best player right now, if Kevin Durant can lead this hobbled Nets team, obviously after Game 6, and win the conference title and then go to the NBA Finals, I think he's probably up in the top 3, honestly. I think for me, it's LeBron, Durant, and Steph Curry, not in that order. But I do believe, though, that Durant, I think, could solely solidify his legacy if he can somehow be that guy who, carries a team like Brooklyn. I know a lot of star players, though, but guys who've been beat up, banged up, chewed up, and spit out with injury, and that. And also, I know, of course, but oh man, he left Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, But then again, who hasn't done that? That's why I'm a fan of Giannis, because he's not going to be a guy who's going to go and jump ship and go to build super teams. Yeah, it's not badly, Trey. I take loyalty over guys jumping ship to go and win championships in sports. I know it's not a right thing to say, but I saw firsthand with Tony Gwynn for 20 years, not of all my life, but for 20 years, he stayed here and didn't go somewhere else to go and win a World Series championship, though. But for Durant, though, I do believe, though, that, with the performance tonight, though, but I believe he's definitely in the top 5 for me. He's been fun to watch regardless of where he's been. I know, of course, he gets like a bad rap, though, for, jumping ship and going to Golden State and then going to Brooklyn or whatnot. But, for a guy, though, who's been pretty, for the most part, healthy for his whole career. Yeah, he's had a couple of perhaps big-time injuries, though. I truly believe that right now that Durant is probably one of the, and perhaps if not one of the, one of the, if not the best player right now in the game, but it's certainly in my top 3 because he's so fun to watch. And and I think he proved firsthand tonight why he should be in that top 3 debate.
And I think the reason why Trey was making the noises he was making is because it comes down to where you said to where it's loyalty, to where right now you're seeing a lot of players who are leaving their teams. LeBron James left multiple teams. Kevin Durant left teams. James Harden left teams. But I think where he's coming from is that Giannis, there was talks that Giannis was going to actually go join Luka in Dallas, but that never happened. And so I think right now what Trey's saying is that, is Giannis going to actually stay a Milwaukee Buck? Because I think if Giannis might have that chance, he might go elsewhere. He might join a Supers team if he could.
Not with that extension he signed for $205 million. There's no way. And honestly, and honestly, I think if Giannis chooses to stay his whole career there and he doesn't win, I think he'd be fine with that, because I think, as we have seen those guys, mainly in the NBA more so, maybe not, maybe a little bit in baseball, maybe a little bit in hockey or soccer or other sports, though. you don't see, you don't have your Kobe Bryants coming around every day where they play, their whole career in one jersey. Yeah, they may change jersey numbers, but you don't have people, like Kobe or Bill Russell, even for that matter, Michael Jordan pre his time with the Wizards, going and playing for one team for 10, 15, 20 years. I think, though, and I say this a lot, though, guys, for a city like Milwaukee, who was obviously starting for that first title, or, that first title since 71 with Oscar and Kareem, is that, that I think means a lot to players. That's why I say, it's the Tony Gwynn treatment, because Tony Gwynn played 20 years with the Padres and never took, and never wanted to go and chase the money or chase the World Series championships. Yeah, he went there twice and lost both, though. But that's where I've always been, though, is that I'd rather a player. I know it's not a, maybe the right thing to say nowadays, but I would rather have someone like Giannis, for example, play their whole career in one city and maybe not win, but at least, though, stuck it out through the good times, the bad times, and stuff like that. But again, maybe I'm off base because I live in San Diego and our sports teams aren't very good here. But I rather would see someone like Giannis pull, the Tony Gwynn treatment, spend his whole career there. Yeah, he probably doesn't win, but I'd rather see that more often. I think that's also why, though, guys, why the NBA viewership is trickling down every year, because it's always the same teams, and it's always that guys are going here, guys going there, and stuff like that, and other factors, I think, though, too. But that's where I'm at. And again, it's probably not like the right thing to say, but honestly, for me, it's loyalty to one city over winning championships. Sorry.
I hummed. I agree with you. I'm with loyalty. I hope Giannis stays. But Kevin Durant, you got to remember, he was with the Seattle Supersonics, and then they moved to Oklahoma City, and he signed an extension, and he's also said he's never going to leave Oklahoma City.
Paul George, same thing.
Exactly. And Damian Lillard, he said, I'm not going to join these. And then he made that Instagram remark. It gets tiring if you can't get a superstar player and you're getting beat after year after year, and you're not bringing players in to help you. And that's why Kevin Durant left to go join the Warriors. And I say what you want to about it, the Warriors, whatever. Right. He won a championship. LeBron James started all this movement, so let's just stop it right there. But I'm with you. I hope Giannis stays because I'm with that. I like Steph Curry. I said this in a previous podcast. I think Steph Curry and Damian Lillard are probably going to be your last two players. They're going to superstars that are going to stay with one team.
Absolutely. I agree.
They all said the same thing, and yeah, he signed the extension, but so did Kevin Durant. And then when his next contract came up, that's when he left. And I think that's where Giannis is going to be if he doesn't win a ring or at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, or that's the finals. Where he's like, well, how good is this loyalty thing? Because in a society that we're looking at rings and championships, and that's where you're going to rank them best of all time, you're going to go join. I mean, if the ownership GM is not helping you bring players in, then yes, I can see Giannis leaving. But as you're right, he did sign that extension. I'm glad he did. I hope he does stay with one team because I love Giannis Antetokounmpo. I hope he does stay because I do love loyalty. I'm a big 90s, early 2000s NBA guy. I love everyone just staying with one team, and it's awesome to watch. But LeBron James or Boston Celtics kind of started it, but LeBron James started with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh doing all this stuff.
That's kind of where I think it kind of got magnified. Was after it was once like at the time, the highly touted prospect, like LeBron was, obviously we know about the big three in Boston in 2008 and till 2010, but I think that it more so got magnified by LeBron going to Miami with Wade and Bosh.
You're right.
All right, so Isaiah, I'm going to jump over to you on this. Anything that they have said, what is your thoughts on this whole situation here?
Well, first of all, Ace, I thought that when you said the word GOAT, I thought you would, finally give me that answer or that thing that you wanted to tell me about your GOAT. Oh, I just opened Pandora's box.
No, you did. So you want to hear my overall take on this? Yes, I told you I would give you the whole spiel on why I truly feel like there is no such thing as a true GOAT, that the only actual GOAT in any sport is Wayne Gretzky. And here's the reasoning.
Thank you. I'll take that with it. I'll take that and run with it. Thank you.
Yes, there you go. So Wayne Gretzky is the true GOAT, okay, in any sport. But when we talk about true GOATs overall, here's why you can't classify a GOAT in your sport. So you look at the NBA and you look at the older generation and you ask them and say, who's the GOAT? They're going to come out and say Wilt Chamberlain. Then you go to the next generation, and it's going to change. It might go to maybe like Magic Johnson or somebody, and then you go to the next generation, they're going to say it's Michael Jordan. Then you go to this generation, they're going to say it's LeBron James. So, in all honesty, every single generation was different.
Yes.
And
Every
so-
generation has their greatest of all time.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that's why you can't come out and say there's one GOAT over anybody else. It's because of
That's-
all these different
that's not true.
generations that there are. You can't come out and say that.
That's not true either. So
It is.
no, it's not.
It is.
No, 'cause in this aspect, you're telling me the way the NBA is set up right now, Jordan you're telling me Jordan wouldn't average 40 points in today's NBA. The way he was shooting the ball, the way he drove to the lane, the way he gets fouls and got to the free throw line in the 90s, where you had to punch a guy to even get a technical foul, and now you barely hit a guy over the head, and now it's a flagrant one driving to the lane. You're telling me that he couldn't play in this generation and beat LeBron James at this game?
I'm
You're
not
telling
saying
me that?
Michael Jordan. No, I'm not saying Michael Jordan couldn't, and I'm also not saying, because a lot of people are saying that you take LeBron James and you put him in the 90s, they're
No,
saying
he
he
can't.
could do the same exact thing. I don't
No.
think he could. I'm sitting here and telling you I don't think he could. But we look at today's game and how it has evolved and completely changed. Because back then, in the older generation, the 3-point shot was more of a novelty shot. So now you're seeing all these so-called stars who are out here who are shooting threes like crazy. Today's game is relied on 3-point shooting. That's what it is. It's completely changed. Back then, that's not what it was about. So when you talk about the overall GOATs, that's why I'm saying every generation is going to have a different GOAT. Is there an overall GOAT? No, I don't think so. Unless you look at hockey, it's got to be Gretzky, because it's not even close. I mean,
The
there's
only
nobody
guy
even
who
close
has
to
his number
Gretzky.
retired throughout the whole league. I
Exactly,
agree.
is Wayne Gretzky, and it's not even close in the NHL. Other sports, it's close.
It's not close in the NBA either. I'm with you majority of the time. I'm with you. But the NBA, you can actually compare with LeBron James' floppiness and the way he cries all the time. He could not play in the 80s and 90s. He
There's
couldn't.
no way.
But you can definitely say that Jordan can play in this era and score over 40 points a game. I'm telling you.
I'm
That's
not a
what I'm
LeBron
saying.
fan.
And Bill
I'm
Russell.
not a LeBron fan.
And Bill, I agree. But Bill Russell, he couldn't play in today's generation because of moving to the 3-point line. That's where you can. Now, NFL, I can agree with you because of the rule changes and everything like that. But you can say that. I mean, I guess in hypothetical world, yes, you're right, Adam. But with my eyes, because I've seen Jordan play, I've seen Magic Johnson play, I've seen LeBron play, I've seen Kobe play. The only guy who's played in the early 90s, 2000s, and the late 2000s was Kobe Bryant, and he dominated every one of those eras. And so, by that definition, he's not the GOAT of all time, but he's the only player that I can consistently say that he has dominated all three areas.
Could you imagine last year's Lakers team playing the bad boy Pistons? I mean, Davis
Sure.
and James would be like literally in a body cast playing those guys. There's no way.
So I don't know if you know this, Callan. I'm sure Isaiah and others have told you. Do you know who my favorite NBA team is?
Yeah, the Detroit Pistons.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I'm glad when people bring up the bad boy era, because
There's no way. There's no way that any
Exactly.
player in the current day NBA would survive playing Lambeer and Mahorn and Isaiah
absolutely
Thomas
not.
and John Sally. There's no way. No way.
Nope. So there
Dwight
you go,
Howard
Isaiah.
would be Lambeer's towel boy. That's what's
He would be.
going to happen.
But go ahead and finish what you were saying. Now you open up the can of worms. I answered your question. There you go.
So I was gonna say this. I think if you take away, like, I know, like, this generation, we hear so much about the rings, right? But if you take away the rings, I think that Durant is the best player on the planet, just because I think, with like his scoring abilities. I mean, this guy's what, 6'11". He's pretty much 7 foot. He can shoot the three. Nobody can they can stick a hand in his face, but you can't really, or he can knock shots down over anybody. I mean, this guy is just an athletic freak. He's a great defender as well. I just think if you're talking about, pure athletic ability and pure game on the court, I think Durant is the best player on the planet. But if we're talking about rings, Durant's got what, 3 or 2, and
2.
James is 4.
2.
2.
Well, what I'm talking about today, right now, in today's game, not GOAT of all time, whatever. I'm not. I think Kevin, if he didn't have that torn Achilles, he would have 3 rings.
He would, yeah.
He would have 3, and probably another ring last year. Maybe, I don't know where he would have gone. Things would have probably changed. But right now, you have LeBron James, who I hate with a passion. I cannot stand LeBron James. But I give him his credit. He was the best player. But you're seeing Father Time take over LeBron James. Steph Curry, as much as I love Steph Curry, he's only a shooter. He can't play great defense. I mean, he plays great team defense, but he can't play individual defense. He can take you off the ball, but he can't. And we saw in the LA play-in game, when you double team him, he can't get a shot off or anything because he's too small. This is where Kevin Durant, when you double team him, he can shoot over a majority of the players.
Right.
He can take you off the dribble at 7 foot. He can attack the rim. And tonight he assisted on 10 made field goals on 10 assists, and he added 17 rebounds. And the guy is averaging over 32 points a game in the playoffs. He's coming off an Achilles tear. No NBA player has been spectacular, even for what Kevin Durant is. And that's why I think Kawhi Leonard's up there, but Kawhi Leonard's wildly inconsistent. You see Kawhi Leonard kind of like the other night, you saw him go off and he's all great. But then he has those games, 2 or 3 games in a row, where he's only scoring 20 points and not giving an all-out effort. And where Kevin Durant, and this is where I differ from Kevin Durant from LeBron James. The Lakers were down how many points in the elimination game, and then he quit. He quit on the team. Like, he wasn't even in the. Kevin Durant hustled his butt. They were down 17. He never gave up. That's the difference where I've seen Kevin Durant right now. But as all-time great, he's not. Maybe not even. He's in top 10, but he's not close to the top. But I'm just saying, right now in today's playoffs, I think he's the best player.
Oh, easily.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification on that, Trey. Because I was with you. I've never been a LeBron James fan. I've always come out several times, said I've never liked LeBron. I've never seen one guy get so much credit for losing as many championship games as he has. It has just been complete and utter ridiculous. This guy gets so much credit when he just loses finals all the time. And I just don't get it. I completely don't get it. I feel like it's this double standard that's always going on. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to go into our final segment, which I kind of got this from MI6. So I'm kind of naming this your final thoughts. So thank you for that. I didn't mean to steal the name, but I
Not
do
at all.
enjoy it,
We
so.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So final thoughts. So we're going to jump into that. Isaiah, I'm going to start with you. Your final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts is, first of all, I want to thank the audience for tuning in to our show tonight. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank, Ace and Trey for letting me and Callan hop in last minute and join the show to talk some basketball. Really appreciate you guys. But, my final thoughts is, Ace, I got a question for you, buddy.
Go ahead.
How about those Phillies, huh? How about those Phillies? I haven't seen your face ever since the Phillies took 2 out of 3. The final 2 games, I believe, by walk-off fashion against the Atlanta Braves. How you feeling there, buddy?
How am I feeling? The one thing I will say is right now, I do not understand how Snitker continues game after game to put Will Smith in as a closer. The guy's complete and utter trash, okay? I don't even understand. Our bullpen was so good last year. This year, we are atrocious. Okay, Will Smith.
Should have re-signed Mark Melanson.
Thank you. I completely agree with you on that.
Because now he's with the Padres. So
Yes,
we love him in San Diego.
but-
So thank you very much.
I agree with you on that, though. We should have
yes.
signed Mark Melanson. Will Smith, garbage. We finally signed Shane Green, but he's not. He's still getting back into form, but he blew a game too. So right now, Isaiah, you really had to get me going on that. Gosh dang you.
Hey, I just had to, ask you about that series because I haven't talked to you ever since that series ended. But yeah, great show tonight and a couple programs to look for on MI6. Make sure you guys tune in to Wild Sports Talk. I believe Callan, my guy Loro, and Sammy will be filling in on that show as I will still be on vacation here in Texas, and also No BS, I believe, with Trevor, and there'll be some feeling in that will be on Friday as well.
All right, so Isaiah, I want to know then how's that Astros jersey treating you, huh?
Well, first of all, I just want to clarify to the folks the real reason why I bought that Astros jersey is not because I was brainwashed by Houston. It's because the clothes that I bought in my luggage on this trip was A's t-shirts, Lakers LeBron James t-shirt. I also brought a Phillies Bryce Harper t-shirt, and I also brought my Nick Mullins 49ers t-shirt. And if you look at all the teams that I brought, like t-shirts that I brought on this trip, Nick Mullins 49ers, the people in Dallas would hate me because, you know, the 49ers and the Cowboys are heated rivals, or they were once heated rivals.
They're not anymore, dude.
Yeah, they're not anymore, but they are still considered rivals. But the A's, you know, obviously with the A's and Astros, big rivalry. I can't wear any of those shirts outside. The Lakers, you know, the people in San Antonio, I was down in San Antonio earlier today, and they all hate the Lakers with a passion.
You didn't come see me?
What?
You didn't come see me?
I didn't even know you lived in San Antonio, Trey.
I actually live 60 miles away from San Antonio. Yeah, I agree. Being in San Antonio, if you're not wearing a Spurs jersey, you're going to get heckled. And oh my God, you don't want to wear it. I agree with you.
That's why I didn't wear my Lakers jersey, and I instead wore a Hawaii Rainbow Warriors T-shirt to the walk out there today. And then the Phillies, you know, Bryce Harper, people like majority of people don't like him besides Phillies fans because he's extremely cocky, and they don't like, you know, how he always whines to the umpires all the time, kind of like Mr. LeBron James. So that's why I had to get the
against Harper, so I can vouch for that.
That's why I had to kind of get the Astros shirt. It was a matter of survival for me because I didn't want to go out with no clothes on. I didn't want to go out wearing that stuff and then come back at the nighttime and get my butt kicked and have like so many bruises and black eyes and all that stuff. It was a matter of survival, Ace. So that's why I ended up getting that sickening Astros jersey.
No,
It's not as bad as Isaiah being freaked out by people who have concealed carry licenses in San Antonio walking around with their guns on them. Like, really, dude, that's part of the law.
Yeah, but I mean, you should have hit me up because here in San Antonio, they're not really truly Astros fans. They're front runner fans. They don't hear anything about the Astros until they won that World Series. So they're not even paying attention right now, to be honest with you.
And if they are watching baseball, Trey, they're watching the Missions, the Double-A team for the Padres. So, yes.
Exactly.
I am going to a Rangers game on Friday at the new Globe Life Field. So,
Good, I
Callan,
hope they get no hit.
I hope what you said about home court or home field, you know, earlier comes true because there's probably going to be at least 45,000 Ranger fans in that stadium.
No.
And I want to see the Rangers actually play competent baseball instead of losing like 20-1.
Go Twins.
Who are they playing?
They're playing the Twins.
Yeah, you're going to have Ranger fans. But if any other team like the Braves or the Yankees or the Red Sox, there's
Or the
more
Padres.
there's more of those fans at Ranger games than there are actual Ranger fans.
So you have the Rangers versus the Twins. So you have trash and more trash. Thank you very much for clarifying.
It's either a box of Twinkies or a pile of trash.
Exactly.
A box of Twinkies.
So,
But the good news, though, is that the Rangers are giving away a Rangers welcome home mat that is super big that I will be able to get home to the Bay Area. So I think that's like the only reason why I'm there.
all right, now I'll turn this one over to Callan. Callan, any final thoughts for you?
Thanks for the invite to bring both of us on. And, nice to talk to Trey and you, Ace, talk some hoops. And hopefully we'll be able to join you guys again and actually do a full show and not coming at like the last minute.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. I know you had a show that was going on. So that's why I was like, you know what? Go ahead. You do your show. Hop on when you can. So we really appreciate you hopping on.
No worries. Thanks again.
Absolutely. And so let me get to these two final comments here that are up here. So we have John Alcorn that's coming on that says, remember Isaiah bought an A&M purse. And he sent me that picture that said he bought the A&M purse.
Come on,
I have
man.
a video of Isaiah falling off the treadmill, too, at his hotel weight room, too.
And then J.R. Alexander saying, what up, Trey? So there you go. You have somebody else that's coming on there saying, what up? So thank you, Callan. Again, Trey, any final thoughts?
I just want to say something really quick. Here in San Antonio, I don't know if anyone else knows this besides the San Antonio area, but this beef between Charles Barkley Barkley and the San Antonio women and calling them fat. Charles Barkley.
Is that still going on after all these years?
Well, it was until Charles Barkley went on a radio show today and said that he can no longer talk about the women of San Antonio because his people from San Antonio were complaining about him making fun of the women. And if I was one of those, when do we become such these crybaby culture we can't take a joke? I understand it. If he was talking about one woman, I would understand it. But he's talking about a whole thing. It's a joke. And if you just look at Charles Barkley, he ate a freaking 250 donuts today on the pregame show. I mean, this guy can on his ass. He can fit like everyone, even Shaq on his ass. I mean, this guy, just give it back to him. Why do we have to be such this knee-jerk reaction to cancel everybody out? Just go back and make fun of the dude. That's what he wants is good banter. Just stop crying, San Antonio. I'm just telling
Charles
you, man.
Barkley makes me look like a competent golfer. I will say that.
Dude, his swing has actually gotten better.
He
actually doesn't stop anymore. He actually goes full circle now. So we're all good on that. But
Hey, Trey, you forgot one thing. His ass might be able to fit the entire Alamo Dome that I visited earlier today.
There you go.
That Alamo Dome, dude, has so much history, but it needs to go, dude. It needs to put another, like a base. That's why San Antonio can't get a baseball team or another NFL team because they don't want to get rid of that Alamo Dome for some odd reason.
Well, the hockey rink. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, they play at the AT&T. Well, they got rid of their hockey team.
I know. They're in Henderson, Nevada now. I know all about them. I work in the AHL. I know all about the Henderson Silver Knights now.
Well, why are you taking the San Antonio team away from us, man? That was fun.
I missed the Rampage. I know. They lost the Rampage and lost the Stars. I can't believe it. That'd be the San Antonio Stars of the WNBA who are now in Vegas.
Yes.
Well, yet again, we are there at that time, so I do want to thank Callan for hopping on. Thank you, Callan. Thank you, Isaiah. You guys are welcome to hop on, speak out anytime you want. Normally, we do the show on Thursday nights. We just did a special edition tonight because Trey was going to be unavailable on Thursday, so we're like, hey, let's move it up to Tuesday because Trey wanted to do this show. He did not want to miss it, so like, let's go ahead and move it up. So thank you guys for hopping on, and you guys are welcome anytime, so go ahead and reach out. And for those of you who know, Callan and Isaiah are from the MI6 network, and you can catch them on multiple shows. So, Callan, what shows do you do on MI6?
The Sports Lounge every Tuesday minus next week, and then the Night Shift with Isaiah every Saturday and Sunday.
All right. And then, Isaiah, besides the Sports Lounge, like Callan was talking about, what shows you got?
Yeah, so I do Wild Sports Talk, with Callan and Sammy. By the way, Ace, thanks you so much for filling in for me on Monday. You did a fantastic job. I didn't agree with some of your sports takes. I might need to talk to you about some of them, but we'll save that for when I get back. But I do Wild Sports Talk. I also do No BS, and also I do the Night Shift with Callan every Saturday and Sunday. So those are the shows that I do, and there might be a special new show that we've been talking about that we might have coming soon to both networks. We'll see.
Adam, please do not let this guy get anywhere close to a cooking program, let alone a karaoke show, please.
I will not do that. I will not do that. The show that we're talking about doing is actually a great show, and I think you'll actually like it. The cooking show, I don't think anybody wants to watch him burn fish sticks. So,
or make Lunchable style pizza,
yeah,
please.
There you go. So thank you yet again for you guys hopping on. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much, and I enjoy working many more shows with you guys. So we will see you guys next time. And thank you for all of our viewers. You can catch us again, and you guys have a great night.
Have a good one.